Welcome back to the Fox News Specialist, and this is the Docket. So James Comey accomplished a lot of things with yesterday's testimony. Now, exactly what? Well, that depends on who you ask. But one thing he absolutely did was put a huge cloud of legal suspicion over his own head. He admitted that he leaked his infamous memo to his good friend and Columbia University professor, and then instructed him to pass it along to the New York Times. Now, Comey claims he did this to make sure that an appointment of an independent special counsel to the Russia probe would happen, and that plan clearly worked like a charm, hence the appointment of Robert Mueller. But along with that political win comes a mountain of understandable legal scrutiny. Did Comey break the law with his self-proclaimed leak? And did he breach privilege by leaking a confidential conversation with the president? Certainly, that's what President Trump's lawyers will assert when he makes his complaint looking into this with the DOJ next week. So let's look at this million-dollar question. Is Comey's leak a crime? First, when Comey shared his memo, he was no longer a government employee. Number two, the information within Comey's memo was not classified. And number three, there's nothing that indicates that the memo contained any information relating to national security. Now, for the privilege issue. The conversation was not subject to an attorney-client privilege, since we know Comey was obviously not acting as Trump's lawyer, and if any privileges did exist, well, Trump waived them by repeatedly disclosing the contents of his conversations with Comey, including on Twitter. Now, based on that analysis, Comey's actions don't meet the legal definition of a leak. But I do not like the way Jim Comey pushed out this information. I would have had a lot more respect for him if he'd just been straight up and directly given the memo to the press. But as shady as his actions were, legally speaking, Comey should be in the clear. Now, Eric, you said the same thing. You know, why not just give it up yourself? And we can only speculate as to why.
I'm not buying this whole rally. I buy your docket, and I get the legal definition of leak. But here's my problem. A professional ethical standard has to be set. Did he violate either of those? Maybe not a legal violation, but professionally and ethically, did he violate? Would he apply the same rules to his agents? Is it okay for an agent to take a memo on a FBI computer about a meeting they had on work hours in the office and then go ahead and leak that to the press? I'm guessing that would be an unequivocal no, but here's where I think he might get in some legal trouble. I'm guessing, and we can find this out if this is part of the law, a lot of times when you go to work for different groups and agencies, you have to sign a non-disclosure, an NDA.
Yes.
If he signed an NDA, he clearly violated that NDA.
Okay. Well, I don't know that he signed an NDA, but I think let's talk about your issue of the record, because a lot of people, if you look on social media, are debating this. I want to make it clear, it was absolutely a record, Eric. You're exactly right. That memo, it pertained to his work as an FBI director. It talked about it. It was a legal record. But because he released it when he was no longer operating in that capacity, that's one of the reasons it's not going to be considered a legal.
I got to tell you, if they let this go and say under the guise of no law was broken, it's going to be open season on leakers coming out of the agencies.
But that's why I think people are giving him some backlash for the way he did it, right? I think if he said, you know what, I don't trust this for whatever reason, I want to write it down, and then I hand deliver this to the New York Times and say, hey, this was my experience, does that bother you? Well, under that scenario?
It does as well.
It still does.
On the ethical side. Yeah.
Okay. So, Kat, do you feel like at any point there's going to be an opportunity to say, I'm uncomfortable with this, and take it to the press and it not get backlash?
No, I don't think so necessarily. But this, again, Eric, going back to your point, talking about the people in the agencies, that would be a different thing because they're still working for the government. Obviously, the way that he handled it.
Let's say they quit and then leaked.
Well, it's okay. It wasn't cool. You talk about, was it morally okay? Was it cool? Was it a cool way to handle it? Was that? No, it wasn't. It definitely breaks some sort of, moral code, the bro code, but it doesn't break the law.
It doesn't break the law. Leaking information that could be detrimental to the United States.
Not a fan. Obviously, not a fan of that. But in terms of does it break the law? Not really. And intelligence agencies are dealing with a lot more right now than someone who doesn't work there anymore leaking something where nothing was even classified.
Tom, let me ask you this, because Eric brings up a good point, which is once that information is deemed to be detrimental to the United States, now that's a different standard, and that's one of the reasons I'm going to say that I think Comey's in the clear here, because that wasn't the content of this memo. But let's say it was. Then would you see it differently?
No, I don't think there's any legal issue here, and I don't even think Trump thinks there is. He's been complaining ever since he was sworn in that no one is talking about the leaks. You hear him say it. Why aren't we talking about the leaks? This is a way to get people to talk about the leaks, talking about the legality of it. And in the end, I think he knows there's not going to be any legal issues, but he wants us to discuss it because then everyone's thinking, yeah, that's right. The FBI director is the guy who did the leaking. Otherwise, we wouldn't be mentioning it. It's Trump playing the press. And he's doing it
yeah,
well.
because in Trump's tweet, he said, like, and one thing is, Comey's a leaker, wow.
Right,
So.
he wants to take it up a notch and make sure, but I don't know what the legal violation of whether it was cool or not is, but I think Cass Whitson, his lawyer, goes too far. And I also think we, as Republicans, because I saw a lot of Republicans jump on this today, have to be careful of pushing this too far. There's a real big difference between leaking classified information that puts the United States in jeopardy and just people going out and talking about things that you may not want them to talk about. They may still be a leaker, and they should probably still be fired for doing that, but they shouldn't be prosecuted. It's not like the same situation as like a reality winner where you're in this, where they've actually put out information that put the United States in jeopardy. And that to me is an important difference and a distinction here that we have to deal with, because if we as Republicans or the Republican Party starts trying to make a big deal out of what Comey did and put it at that level, we downplay one and we elevate the other and we make both of them, we anesthetize everyone to both of them.
Eboni, can we do this? Can we at least say that maybe some of the standards of classified need to be relooked at? In other words, any conversation you have with the President of the United States should be deemed classified?
So you're talking about executive privilege, which I'm really glad you brought up, Eric, because it's not on the books, but it is understood that when you have those types of conversations with the sitting president, he enjoys executive privilege just by the nature of it. The problem is with privilege, like attorney-client privilege, once you start if you breach it, then it's fair game. Exactly. And that's the problem, is the president himself has been talking very much about his conversations with Jim Comey. So once he does that, even if there was, say, a privilege at play, which I think Trump could have legitimately argued, he's already been the breach.
But I don't think Trump was ever talking about those specific. He didn't really even tweet about it until after Jim Comey said, by the way, I have a memo that I took after a private meeting with the president.
Well, you could argue, Comey would argue that he said that in response to the president tweeting the, quote, tapes.
That was
it's circular.
No, that was a response. The tweet came after Comey said, I have a memo. That's why Trump said,
well, he said, I have a memo, but then he leaked
tapes.
So then he said, right, he said, I have these tapes, and then Comey actually leaked it following. As a response? Is that right, the timeline?
I'm not sure about that.
I think so. I think that is right.
But Trump didn't, what do you call it, excuse executive privilege by tweeting until after Comey said he had a note.
So lesson America, don't ever breach your executive privilege.